Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by Good Marketing and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So artificial intelligence is here and it's here to stay. Many are tinkering with its abilities, but others are diving into the deep end to become experts and assist other people with their journeys. Here to speak on a new endeavor called Compound is the founder of Super Web Pros and teacher of AI systems and organizational design at Michigan State, Jesse Flores, and the founder of Lead With Collective and a 20-year people and HR leader for global Fortune 1000 companies, Julie Mann. Talk about experts. Welcome to the show, Jesse and Julie.
Well, she's got the expertise. I'm just riding the coattail.
Right on. Well, it's a heck of a blend of kind of HR and technology, and AI obviously isn't going anywhere. And I love the HR and people side of all of this because some of the concern is, I mean, you've got all the macro morality and, you know, all the guardrails that people are concerned about, but then it's going to take away all the jobs and all that kind of stuff.
Are people worried about that? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. Follow Travis Stoliker online. He'll tell you a little bit about how that's not going to happen. But I'm excited about this conversation. So, and I will admit that I'm going to learn as much as the listening audience because I am tinkering, chiseling on stone a little bit with this stuff. So I'm really, some of this is probably going to go over my head, but I'm going to try to keep it down because a lot of our listeners are probably in the same boat as me. But Jesse, why don't you start off by talking a little bit about your tech journey? Obviously, AI is, kind of has been for a little while, but is certainly where the puck is leading to. How did you start? You've been in this world for a long time.
I have been, yeah. So, I started like many people my age. I started with a tech startup 10 years ago, and it was I was in Atlanta, Georgia at the time, and so we were fundraising to do kind of this like Uber for self-storage model, and it went well until it didn't, as many tech startups often do. And so I found myself in the universe of technology for maybe 10 or 12 years ago, and then I never left. And from that time, people were already talking about AI. It was just that it was a lot more inaccessible than it is today. It was very expensive. It was still very theoretical. It was very difficult to do. But even at that time, I was already starting to follow what would eventually become the algorithms that would power today that Sam Altman and others figured out how to bring to scale.
Right on. Got it. And Super Web Pros at its core does what kind of work for what type of customers?
Yeah, so at its core, we were a web dev shop and found ourselves doing increasingly more software engineering for companies that wanted to build unique experiences for their online clients and prospects. And it kind of really dovetailed well with what we wanted to be doing in the AI space, because as people were looking for more new and interesting, engaging experiences, this new thing came along that allowed us to really create some really, really cool experiences and some really cool products.
Got it. And Julie, I don't know you terribly well, but I know of you, right? So
you've been everywhere,
exactly. Yep, you're part of this Lansing ecosystem of usual suspects.
Oh yeah.
And I know you are HR and big company and people development and all of those kinds of things. But share a little bit in your own words who you are, what your path is, what's important to you, and then if you wouldn't mind finishing with how you found this knucklehead over here and decided to go into a camp with him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, exactly that. I have grown up all along the HR, people practices arena, time in corporate, time in consulting, and most recently, I was the global chief human resources officer for a major public company. I managed 44 countries.
Wow.
So just think about that.
It's a lot of laws.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, think about just managing that side of it. But so, grew up in that HR space, but it's never HR, right? I mean, it's organizational success that happens through the people.
Yep.
And there's many things that lead to that success. And so, that's always kind of been my passion. It's the people side of it, but it's how do you create the organization that succeeds into the future? And so, that kind of brought me over. I'm not going to call him a knucklehead, but
I hope you take that in jest.
I know. We like to.
We've known each other a long time.
I know. We do great. So anyway, I mean, that kind of led over to Jesse. We met at just a meeting that we didn't know each other over a year ago now, and and just having conversations. I mean, Jesse. I mean, he's brilliant on this, this technical side, right? And so what we found is the more and more we talked about it, like one of the reasons corporations and organizations are failing in putting in AI right now is they're looking at it as a tool deployment. It's not just put in this tool and it will work. There has to be, we call it organizational design. Like you have to look at how the organization is trying to succeed with the tool.
Yep.
And if you're going to do that, you can't do that without the people side.
Right. Okay.
And so, we started having conversation after conversation, and like all of a sudden we got to this spot where we were like, no, this is a difference maker. This is a different approach to AI that we're not seeing out there relative to how do we get the organization ready?
Right.
How do we help the organization understand where AI fits into their organization and then go buy the thing? Right. And then that's why we came up with Compound, which it took us a long time to get there. But if you can work organizations through those steps, the last step in our business model is Compound, because then you can do it faster and faster and faster and more efficient. And that's where you start seeing the impact of AI hit the bottom line. And that's where you see P&L impact, which at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for, right?
Yeah, Chris, you at the beginning, you made the comment about people worried about jobs, right?
Yep.
And so Julie and I initially started having conversations around that topic because at the time that this was starting to become, get more momentum in the zeitgeist, I had already started implementing we have dramatically more AI agents working in my company than we do people at this point, right? But one of the things that was really, really clear was that it's not an either or, it's a both and. And I think the idea that this technology was going to just kind of pop in and then start replacing a lot of people, which is the kind of narrative you hear in the zeitgeist. Once anybody who's actually done this realizes that's not true. In fact, it's pretty far from true. And at the same time, it blocks you from being able to get the real value out of it that you can, because your people are then terrified that you're going to come in and do this thing that's going to replace all of them.
Yep.
And so there's all of this hype and misinformation. And as Julie and I started talking, we both aligned on this idea that people matter, and that regardless of this tool or this technology, people really still are the lifeblood of every single organization, every single company. And so we wanted to make sure that we were having a more nuanced conversation than what you hear on Twitter or Instagram or any, I guess it's now called X.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Any of the socials. Right.
I've got a question that I want to tee you up on, but first I want to give a nod to our friends at Wagner Financial. Whether you're just starting out, planning for retirement, or anywhere in between, Wagner is here to help you make smart financial decisions. They offer comprehensive, customized planning, from investment strategies and tax solutions to insurance, accounting, and estate planning. Wagner is dedicated to supporting you, your family, your business, and your future. Using their unique team approach and maximizing each member's specializations, they ensure that there is someone who will have an answer to your question and is ready to help. Schedule a consultation by visiting wagner-financial.com or give them a call at 517-853-3367. In the LinkedIn post that you had, Jesse, that kind of hooked me, you had a nugget of wisdom about IKEA, about how they kind of balanced all of this as you're talking about. They did this, grew revenues, reduced expenses, and retrained employees and didn't need to really lay anyone off. In a nutshell is what you said.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you unpack that a little bit more for us?
Yeah, so the idea here was they underwent a pretty significant AI initiative, and there was a lot of opportunity for cost savings. And I forget the exact number, but something like in the neighborhood of 7,500 people could have theoretically been let go if the goal of IKEA was to implement this technology and just remove the people in order to goose your P&L. But that's not what they did. In fact, they ended up redeploying many of these people into more value-added jobs that led to new product initiatives that ultimately came to market, that led to them refining their strategies in different ways. And so what they did, and I think what was so telling about that particular story, was it wasn't a story of implement AI, cut the people, move on. It was a story of implement AI, redesign the work in a way that allowed for AI to be successfully implemented, and then redeploy those people into something that could lead to more growth for the organization, right? We have this idea that it's this sort of zero sum, all or nothing. I bring in AI, I get rid of people. But in reality, they have such different lanes of expertise that you bring in AI to handle this particular lane, which allows you to deploy this other resource, this very expensive, very capable resource, your workforce, into something completely different.
Got it. And so that concluded, I actually screenshot the post that you had. But it said 3 types of knowledge. One type almost nobody is managing, and a very clear picture of what it costs when it's gone before anyone thought to protect it. Talking about the people and the mindset. But you said Thursday, Julie Mann and I are going live on exactly this. So Compound is your new entity, but Compound Conversations was a series of kind of
it is a series
of conversations to kind of really try to explain what it is Compound is, right? And using case studies. And now, is this Q&A, or are they recorded sessions of you two chatting with each other? How is they set up?
So it's really us talking with each other. I mean, and it was interesting, as we thought about Compound Conversations, it was, we're together all the time. And the conversations that led us to where we're at really should be shared knowledge, right? Because it's a mindset shift. I mean, that's the thing, we can all talk about, I got to go do an AI thing.
Yep.
I've got to do something. But there's so much of it that's just a mindset shift that has to get us there so that we're thinking about these things in the right way. And so it's just Jesse and I sitting together. They're live conversations. People can join, but we also have them archived as well. But one of what you saw was we like to take those conversations and make smaller clips so that we can, engage people in kind of, again, that thought process, that thought leadership that in that space. So they're just Jesse and I chatting. People can join live. They're every Thursday.
And you use AI to make the clips?
They are on Apple and Spotify. So if people want to go and find the podcast, they're there.
Compound Conversations is what
it's
they would
just
search?
Compound.
Just Compound.
I think.
Either way. They figure it out.
If you Google it, you'll find it.
Right.
Yeah.
AI will find it for you.
Well, I guess that in that case, if you're chatting it, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah, somebody will find it.
Somebody will find it.
So, all right. So obviously this is to whet people's appetite, kind of start learning about how to think differently about this. So who are you hoping to attract? Like who's the audience that you are hoping will then jump on your website or make a phone call to say, I like what you're saying, help me in my organization do what you're talking about? Who are those people? Who's your sweet spot?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you're too small for IBM to care about your transformation, you should call us.
Right.
Right. I mean, and I'm saying this kind of half in jest, but the reality is, like right now, you've got the Fortune X, and they're all racing towards implementing all of these things. And there's only a handful of even at that level of organizations that are able to do these deployments. Your Accenture, Deloitte, Bain, right? So they're all handling the Fortune X. But then you've got this whole tier below where you've got employees, you've got assets, you've got resources, but you don't have guidance for something like this. So it's probably not a Main Street business. You're too small to have any meaningful data or systems or organization, right? But sort of larger than that, where we've got clients that are much, much bigger. And I think that's what we want to try and help those clients that are kind of in that mid-market who don't have somebody help them implementing this stuff into their system, but they have more than just like a, solopreneur who is kind of growth hacking their way to success, right? You've got a team, you've got an executive team who want to help you figure out how to take that, how to implement this the right way.
Got it. I do have to admit, again, as a semi-older guy listening to all of this, I looked at I read your what you'll learn from this one Compound Conversation that you had. And I read it to my wife jokingly. I'm like, this is what I'm going to learn. And I read the 3 different bullet points. I'm like, I don't know half of those words.
Right, yeah.
So I guess I say that in jest, but I also tee up the question of what level of knowledge would an ideal audience that you're trying to attract have? Like, are these people that have AI like accounts and they're tinkering and they're using it to streamline certain things, but they haven't undergone the holistic change? Or are you okay with rookies who are leading large organizations and realizing in this conversation that I'm falling behind and I need to get caught up, and so I need a change agent like yourselves to get that started?
Yeah, so Julie can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say no AI knowledge is fine. What you do need to have knowledge about is how your company works. Right? You have to have some knowledge around your what you're trying to accomplish, right?
Well, and I was just going to pop in there is That's one of the things that we find most interesting, is because I'm going to take, again, with the HR hat on, right?
Yeah.
We have job descriptions, right? Yep. So we assume we know what every person does because every person has a job description. Wrong. Those are the things they're trying to get done, but we don't know how they're doing the work.
Okay.
And so when you get with a leader, like, yeah, we have an org chart, we have a job descriptions, we have all of these types of things, but one of the things that you noticed on the point that you read, and, Jesse and I, we have a distinct compound vocabulary. I mean, we've developed different methodologies, like we call it work deconstruction, right? We have to look at the work and what's getting done, and then we have to identify what can be done by the human and what can be done by the agent. And so, a lot of times people are, oh yeah, I know what's going on. I mean, Jesse's exactly right. Like, that's the person that we need. But it's always kind of fun because that's also the person that, as we start asking the questions and pulling the layers of the onion back, that we're like, okay, that's exactly why we're here.
Right. Nope. That makes sense. And before I tee up the next question, I want to thank our friends at Michigan Rise. This episode is brought to you by the Michigan Rise Pre-Seed Fund, providing early stage funding to Michigan-based startups. Since 2020, Michigan Rise has helped high-tech, high-growth startup companies achieve commercial and technical milestones through capital formation strategy, talent development, and customer acquisition tactics. With financing options for every stage of the entrepreneurial journey, Michigan Rise significantly increases the impact of new ideas and research. Visit www.michiganrise.com to discover how Michigan Rise can help fuel your startup's growth. Michigan Rise is supported by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation and the Michigan State University Research Foundation. So there are a lot of people professing to be AI experts. Mm-hmm. And Julie, I think you really started hitting on this, but what is your value proposition? What do you bring to the table differently? If I'm sitting there in the quagmire of, holy goodness, how am I going to scale my AI endeavors as an organization? And why would I pick Compound to be the group that does that for me?
Yeah, so I think fundamentally a big part of what we're trying to do is teach you how to fish, right? Mm-hmm. So could I go in and build you a whole team of agents and automate this, that, and the other? Absolutely. But the real value add, I think, and I want to go back to what Julie was saying with work deconstruction, because I think when you are, I think to her point, when for a lot of us, like, we have some sense that work gets done, but I think one of the things we aren't always aware of is, like, as she said, how the work gets done and then what the loss is in that. So I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. We had a project coordinator, just very simple, kind of call it quasi-administrative role, right?
Yep.
We had a project coordinator, and she was like not doing a particularly great job, right? So she wasn't updating clients as quickly as we'd like her to update them. She wasn't she wasn't following with the team as quickly as we'd like. So, and to hear her say it, she was overwhelmed. She had more work than she had time to get it done. I was suspicious, right?
Yep.
So Marina on my team was getting really, really frustrated because we needed her work to get done for Marina to do her job. And so we were at that point that a lot of people get to, which is, do we let this person go and hire a replacement? Or do we just kind of grin and bear it? Do we put together some sort of plan for how we're going to help her get better, whatever that is? And so Marina and I sat down and said, okay, wait, let's actually talk about what this person does. And so we took her role. We said, okay, the outcomes for which she's responsible. She's responsible for weekly status updates. She's responsible for following up with the team in this way. She's responsible for updating our project management system in this way. So we sat down and we kind of went through all of these things that she's responsible for. And we said, okay, gosh, if we look at this whole list of things, we put them into two columns. Column A are things that require human judgment, and column things are we'll call it digital plumbing, just moving stuff from one system to another, whether that's sending an email or updating an ERP or updating a CRM, whatever it is, it's just digital. It's the digital work you have to do to keep things straight. Yep. So we put all this information in column A, column B, and we said, gosh, in terms of the column A judgment things she has to do, like deciding whether or not to reallocate capacity this way or that way, actually wasn't really that much in column A. Most of her work was in column B. It was updating this, was updating that, was following up on this, following up on that. And when Marina and I sat down and looked at it, I said, gosh, we could actually put an agent team in place that does all of those tasks. and then reabsorb the work that this woman does back into the organization, because it's not actually 40 hours worth of judgment work. It's 5 hours worth of judgment work. It's 35 hours worth of administrative work, right? So we got really clear about what this person was doing. We got really clear about the parts that required judgment and the parts that didn't. And then we started to build a system around the latter that we could delegate to AI, and then we absorbed the other work in the way that we needed to do. To Julie's point about mindset shift, most of us don't know how to think about our work that way.
Yes.
But by me giving you this example, you can imagine you've probably worked with project coordinators.
Yeah.
You've probably worked with admin. You've probably worked with project managers. You've probably worked with salespeople. And you could, or even think about your own work and start slotting in column A, column B. Which things do I do that require me to make decisions or judgments? And which things do I do that are just me filling out paperwork, right? You know, to use the old administrative cliche. And you probably don't have the lens at the moment to know, I bet you I could put that into an AI column. But that's what we're here to help you with. Is to realize if you really were to start approaching your work this way, you're going to realize column A is actually much smaller than you think. Column B is probably bigger than you think. And what we want to do is help you learn how to make those distinctions so you can then figure out how to implement these things in the right way for your organization. Some people might have project coordinator roles that are bigger on column A than ours was. It just turns out ours wasn't. But learning how to think through the problem is what we're helping you do.
Well,
and
I
is that
think
the deconstruction that you were talking about?
Yeah, that's a very, and I think that's one of the, get back, like, that's what makes Compound different from other, I'm going to call it AI experts, right? Most AI experts right now are selling tools. And what Compound sells, if you want to say, it's the design discipline that's needed so that we can determine whether those tools are going to actually produce a return over time. And, again, if you go back to, why Jesse, Julie, why combo? I mean, there's organizational change that's happening throughout all of that, and with my time when I was the CHRO, we did multi-billion-dollar integration projects and, talk about organizational design and change management. Like, all of that is part of producing that return for AI. So we're not just going in and saying, oh, I hear what your problem is. A lot of people will go in, let's use Jesse's example with the administrator, and they'll say, oh, well, you need an agent for that. Let me go build you the agent and put it in, and then you're going to go, oh, wow, that's cool. But it didn't teach you the discipline of how to think about working differently, thinking about when a challenge comes up on, do we need to add headcount or not? How do I think about that differently? Because we're in the same camp of, we don't see AI taking over, oh, we're not going to have jobs. We completely disagree. Another Compound phraseology that we use a lot is the headcount paradox. And so right now, companies are growing linearly, and they're very used to linear growth. I grow, I hire. I grow, I hire. Well, what you're going to find once you can integrate AI into the organization is that you're going to continue to grow, Yahoo, but your labor expense, which is your largest expense on your P&L, right?
Yep.
Your labor expense should be able to flatten a little bit.
Right.
And it's not that the jobs are going to go away. It's because we're deploying people into more meaningful work that lessens turnover, right?
Yep.
Because they're getting rid of all that administrivia that they don't like doing anyway. We all have that pile on the corner of our desk, right? I don't want to do that stuff. But let's not have you have to do that anymore. You can supervise that work. And then spend your time doing more meaningful work, which is going to, enhance engagement, reduce turnover, because people are doing work they really like instead of, I got to do that stuff on Mondays.
Right.
And I think to Julie's point, Chris, if you watch, or if you were to go to any of our Compound conversations, one of the things we offer at almost every single one of them are literally worksheets that you can download that will walk you through the thought processes that Julie and I talk to you. So we talk about work deconstruction here. We literally have a worksheet on how to do work deconstruction. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Step 3, fill this thing out, right? And it's because that's our goal. Our goal is to teach you how to think about this in the right way. Then there's so many ways to solve these problems, but if we can give you a framework, you'll find the right way that works for you.
Yep.
Right on. So now your target audience, when people say, okay, this resonates, I'm totally in, let's get started, are these like cohort training classes, or is it customized, Mr. COO, your
little column A, little column B.
Got it. Okay. So kind of whatever is needed. If you've got a couple people at the same path wanting to start at the same time, it might be a group discussion until and then you might say, okay, Fred, you need this other thing. So, Joe, you don't need to be part of that conversation. We'll circle back around because you're unique in this way and you separate. But
that's right. And also providing content that is both strategic and tactical. So for instance, if you are at the C level, it's important that you probably understand how to organize or structure work in your organization. But if you're actually the person doing the work, you should probably know how to log into Cloud Teams. There's two different levels. And I think it's one of the things that makes this challenging is because so many people, when they talk about AI, they talk about it like it's one thing.
Right.
It's not one thing. There is the organizational dimension, which we've been talking about, but there's also the tactical. Like, how do you actually build an agent? Well, like those are not the same people in most organizations. And so we've organized Compound, again, predominantly as a way to start teaching people how these things work throughout the different parts of the organization.
Got it. Okay.
And to answer your question, I mean, we work with clients directly.
Yep.
And, as the client base builds, having that ability for community and interaction, you learn very well when you're working on a case study together,
right.
And so, as we build that base, having clients to be able to, again, we want them to have good conversations. Like Jesse and I, that's what started Compound Conversations. Like we have these great conversations. It's like other people should, be able to hear this. And so we can get those companies together that can kind of like, as they're experiencing it together, learn together and from each other, as well as, just from our expertise and guidance.
And you talked about the fish metaphor. So is the goal you're going to engage with these clients for a period of time to kind of get their feet under them, get a lot of this incorporated, but then is the goal to let them...
Once AI stops growing, we'll stop growing.
but your engagement with that client is not a forever contract, I guess, or I guess it could be.
It could be theoretically, right?
Yeah.
Right.
The reality is, so I taught a class this past semester at Michigan State University on AI and organizational design, organizational workflows. And I had at the beginning in January, I had this idea of how we were going to deploy. It was project-based and team-based. That was my rule for teaching. I was like, it has to be so hard that they can't do it by themselves and they can't do it without AI.
Right.
And that was the way I organized the work. I wanted it to feel like a real engagement. And so, but I had a plan going into it and had an idea of what the projects were going to look like and how they were going to be deployed in January. But by the time we got to April, the technology had shifted so much that my plan for how we were going to deploy it had to change because it actually got dramatically easier in some respects. And so we completely changed what that was going to look like just within the 3 months that I was teaching the one course because it changed so quickly, right? I suspect that, yes, we aren't locking anybody into contracts, but I don't think this is slowing down. So,
right, sure.
As long as you don't need as long as you don't need an AI Sherpa, I guess that's okay.
Right on. Well, we are getting to be up against the clock a little bit. How can people learn more about how to get engaged with you and maybe just tinker around and be able to read this at their own pace and get engaged with Compound and Compound Conversations?
Yeah, the best way would be to go to our website, www.compoundorg.com. It's not compound.org, it's compoundorg.com.
Got it.
And then as you scroll through there, you'll see a couple of things. One, you'll see access to all the past webinars, so you can go and, or all the past Compound Conversations, so you can go through and listen to those. We've also got a book that we are hoping to debut on Amazon. Nice. Right now, the alpha version is available for free download. Mm-hmm. It's called Co-Intelligent Co-Operations, and it's all about how to implement the future of the workforce, which is both agentic and human, and how they operate together. So you can download that book for free from our website as well until we put it up on Amazon, in which case you'll have to pay for it.
Got it.
And as well, follow us on social. I mean,
right.
Compound is on LinkedIn. It's, we've got our webinars on Spotify and Apple. And so, I think just listening to that, it's, a good friend who's a chief legal officer for a major company, and she just sent me a text over the 4th of July, and she's like, man, I've been listening to your stuff. She's like, that is good. And so I was like, she's like super smart. Yeah. So I was just like, but I think just like listening in, there's so many ways to kind of get access, and you'll start kind of seeing what makes us different, because what we find even in just our research is that, again, that design versus just putting an AI thing in is really what hits organizational success. And that's what we love to see.
Fantastic. Well, we've been speaking with the co-founders of Compound, Julie Mann and Jesse Flores. I really appreciate you coming here and sharing your story.
Always a pleasure.
Compoundorg.com.
You got it, buddy.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining. Absolutely. So and I want to give a final shout out to all of our sponsors: Wagoner Financial, Good Marketing, Triterra Environmental, Keller Williams Advantage and Team, Michigan Rise, Kirk Byron State Farm, and the attorneys at Foster Swift. All fantastic people doing great work. And if you found this as a one-off, please like and subscribe to Michigan Reimagined everywhere you find your podcasts. This is Chris Buck signing off for Michigan Reimagined.